Hello, fellow Pops. I'm Dr. F Scott Feil, and I'm bringing you a message from our sponsor at Ice Shaker. My diet's always been a little bit messed up most of my life, and I recently started trying to take back control of my health. And one of the issues my doctor pointed out was that I needed to make an increase in my protein intake. Now, I can't eat chicken breasts all day, every day, so protein shakes and powders have become a big help. Ice Shaker and its built in removable agitator is an amazing product. They come in a bunch of sizes and colors, and you can even get inscriptions and logos on them. They're stainless steel, double wall insulated, and hold ice for 30 plus hours. If you're interested in purchasing one, you can click on the link in our show notes. Or if you're interested in selling them for your business and making commission, and let's be honest, if you're listening to the Professors of Profit vlogcast and you can consider yourself a pop or a professor of profit, you're likely interested in selling these as a side hustle. You can click on that link in the show notes as well. Or you can reach out to me directly on social media. I'm pretty available there. I love Ice Shaker, and I'm betting you, your patients, and your clients will too. Ice Shaker, let's shake things up. Now let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professors of Profit vlogcast. I'm your host, Dr. F Scott Feil, and I've got with us today special guest, Dr. Dustin Buck, and we're going to talk a little bit about his Institute of Manual and Manipulative Therapy. And there's some cool little aspects of it that make it a little bit different, I think, from things I've seen in the past. So, Dustin, if you wouldn't mind, introduce us to yourself and let us know a little bit about where you're at now, what you're up to these days, and tell us a little bit about the Institute.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Dustin Buck. I did my physical therapy training, University of Florida, did manual therapy fellowship, and then also got my OCS a few years back. And around that time is when I started the Institute of Manual and Manipulative Therapy. And the idea was to try to get advanced manual therapy skills narrowed down. There are definitely a lot of people teaching manual therapy skills out there, but specifically with manipulation and dry needling, I feel like there's a lot of people kind of going with different aspects of those things, or they just don't have enough detail laid down to make it actually learnable in a continuing ed format. My training was sufficient to get me going, but I had to do a lot of behind the scenes discovery and watching YouTube videos and stuff of chiropractors to kind of get an idea of how to better manipulate the spine in a comfortable way and effective way. So that's kind of how it started with the manipulation courses. The pandemic didn't help with any of that for anybody with anything, but especially in-person manual therapy, close quarters courses, I think we especially got nailed with that. And that's right when I was kind of starting and trying to progress things. So that put a pretty good halt to that for a while. But it's been picking up a little bit. It's now firmly into a good side gig, working it towards getting into full time. And I've cut back on clinical hours to part time. And now in March, I'm going to be putting out our first dry needling class called anatomical dry needling, where I try to bring all the relevant needling literature together in an anatomical format. And what I mean by that is some companies will focus very heavily on the trigger point, and then there's another company that does utilize the acupuncture literature, but it's a little confusing with how they do that. And so I'm going to try to bring it together where I bring the acupuncture literature relative to physical therapy practice all together in an anatomical based approach. So if they're talking about, say, treating bladder 20 or whatever acupoint there might be, what anatomy is associated with that? How can we use that treating with our paradigm in physical therapy to help musculoskeletal conditions? So that's going to kind of be my approach there. Use all the relevant anatomy, all the relevant literature out there, bring it together, try to make it understandable, so we can be better at doing it and get better effects for our patients and randomized trials as well. So that's kind of the mission of the Institute. And then later on there'll be other courses that'll probably be online, perhaps with regards to manipulation. but some other fine-tuned manual therapy skills as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack there. And like I said, there's a couple little aspects I'd like to talk about that kind of make you, a little bit different here, which I think is kind of neat. But you said you know, there was a lot of behind the scenes work that had to be done, with getting a lot of this stuff up and running. It was tough during the pandemic. It was a downturn for, like you said, everybody, close quarters and stuff like that, and hands on. It just wasn't a great fit. So, you know, having to do a lot of the extra work when you first started out to go through YouTube University, right? And to find and seek out your own knowledge. And, all the knowledge we need is out there, right? It's on Google, it's on YouTube, we can find it, but it's really getting it packaged into like one nice, central located place where you can go and find the information you need about what you need, and how you can then turn that into something else. And really, it's taking those extra steps to take a CEU course, or to do the research and the reading, or to just better yourself, right? And further yourself. And I think, the cool thing that you offer is like you were talking about, and it looks like it may be heading that way, towards the online courses. You've got some books and manuals, you've got some, online type CD type courses where people can kind of take the knowledge on their own, right? And kind of read into that. And I think that, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that almost seems like it would be a great pre-step or a behind the scenes work of getting to know this stuff, especially if you just weren't comfortable in your manual skills. You didn't really know the lingo, you didn't know the hand placements and things. Those would be a good option for somebody to get more comfortable before they even went to take one of your courses.
Right. And it's been great too. There's been other people that have sought out my materials because they took a manipulation class, and some of the extra details weren't there, and they didn't have videos to accompany their training, and so it just kind of all passed by at 100 miles an hour. And so they've sought out my materials to fine tune their skills that they've already learned, but we're missing some key pieces, and they've been very appreciative and glad that those things were available. So that's a nice thing too. And I have those videos and books available. If somebody signs up for the class in advance, they get a deal on getting those materials beforehand, so they can come ready to go. And it's not just like drinking out of a fire hydrant the first day they come in for the class. So
yeah, I love that. That's a really great option. Again, and I was kind of, I was an English major before I was a PT, right? So I had to do a lot of prerequisites, and I had to do a lot of pre-studying. So anything I could get my hands on ahead of time, I could read. I mean, I read at a pretty good clip. So anything I could get my hands on ahead of time, that was the one benefit that I had, was that I would go and try to get as far ahead as I could, so that when I did start a class, I would eventually be reading it for the second time, or going over it for, a second or third time at that point. So, I was a big fan of that early access and reinforcement type stuff, But Dustin, tell us a little bit about why somebody should even consider, starting a certification program, or a CEU type program, or just what was your why behind wanting to get going on this? Like, what's the thing that propelled you and motivated you to get this thing up and running?
Well, first of all, I loved manipulation. Spinal manipulation was very much something that I was passionate about from the beginning. First time I took a class, I was like, I want to be good at this. It's kind of fit really well with me. So it was easy to be passionate about it. And I think that's something you got to have from the get-go. If you want to teach something, you got to be able to invest the time and your energy and think about it a lot in order to really master it, hone it, and then try to put it out there for other people to learn from you. So definitely that is a key initial step, and that's kind of how I got going with that. And then I also saw that there was a need for more clarity, because I was trying to learn it and I was hungry to get that knowledge, and it just wasn't really available. The answers really weren't there to the questions I had regarding better technique, better audible pops, as I talk about with my manipulation skills. And I am a big proponent of multiple audible pops in the spine, and I talk to people about that as well a lot during the class. So it's kind of those two things: having the passion to do it, and seeing that there is a missing piece out there in our professional development that you can contribute to, and also help yourself too. I'm all about that as well. I think there's a little bit of a culture in physical therapy where it's almost taboo to talk about enriching oneself and making more money, and there needs to be a balance between that and the desire to just help people. I mean, I think both certainly are admirable, but both truly are admirable. So anyway, yeah, that's
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, there's a lot to unpack there too. I mean, it's you're literally hitting the nail on the head, right? You're hitting some common themes here in business, not just physical therapy, but business in general, right? One, you talked earlier about it started as a pretty good side gig, but I'm backing out now, little by little, more and more, and I'm trying to push in more to full time, and I love that, right? Because that's how my businesses started as side businesses, and they'll probably always stay side businesses, right? Because my situation's a little different, right? My wife's a type 1 diabetic, needs the medical benefits, and she's a stay-at-home mom, so I carry the benefits, right? So I started it as a side business. I'll grow it as big as I can, but then that's that, right? My whole goal for people, my hope for people, is that they will start a side business and eventually grow it to a full-time thing so they can exit out and do their thing instead of work for someone else and make them rich, right? So I think one of the first things you said that really hit the nail on the head was your passion for it, right? I generally refer to it as a zone of genius, right? What's something that you're just so good at and you just love and you think about all the time, and you think about how to make better and the processes that go along with it and the standard operating procedures and like all the kind of minutia and the boring stuff that kind of gets lost,
Yeah.
if you can think about that and like fine tune that and just keep working on it and refining the process because you love it so much and you are so passionate about it, that's a no-brainer, man. Lean into it all day, every day. Just do that. That'll bring you a lot more joy than anything else, And it's not, I know that it's cliche to say, well, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? Yeah, well, that's true. But at the same time, there has to be more behind that. It's not just loving what you do. Like, I love baseball, but I'm not very good at it, right? I couldn't do that all day, every day, You have to have a certain skill set, and at the very least you have to build upon it and make it better and better and better, right? And so like you talked about, for you to personally enrich yourself and get better, there were some gaps in the knowledge and in the information that was out there, so you felt that there was a need to fill those gaps. And the only way to do that is to immerse yourself in it more and learn more and push more and really get a good grasp on what's out there. And I think, like I said, with the Institute, you've done a great job at jumping in both feet, and building it from the ground up, starting little by little, building momentum, and it'll just keep growing and growing. And I think that it's just like any other business. You can start it right from scratch and just sever all ties and burn all the ships and just go at it full fledged. But you don't have to do it that way either. And physical therapy is kind of a weird setting like that because it's a great fallback. It's a good safety net to have. We're always going to have a job. You can find a job in physical therapy somewhere. So just do that and then start your side thing that you love and lean into it, And I think you're a perfect example of that. And like I said, I think it's good for people to see these journeys and these stories because they can realize that, hey, they can do it too. They can start on the side and just grow something they're passionate about and build it little by little, brick by brick, until maybe it becomes so big they can't do it part-time anymore and they have to go full-time. That would be ideal, I think. But what are some tips or tricks or pointers that you've learned along the way in kind of starting a side business, especially with relations to, online courses or CEUs or live events and stuff like that? What are some things that you found along the way in doing this?
I would say being willing to adapt and to learn, because there really is, at least in this space, to my knowledge, not a whole lot of people writing books. Maybe that's another area that somebody could go into, but writing a book on how to start a continuing education company, there really isn't anything like that. And so learning on the fly and adjusting when you learn about, different states' requirements, for example, for Con Ed, and then you got to adjust and do the paperwork for them and keeping track of all those different things, because people are going to ask you, is this covered in my state? So being willing to adapt and to learn, because there really isn't a whole lot out there, and it's changing too. It changes, the requirements do, and so and then also to kind of try to find how to get your word out there, because just having a website is not even close to enough to getting the word out there. You got to be willing to work a lot for free with any new business. Maybe that's not quite the same in other businesses where you can establish a brick and mortar practice and in a place that doesn't have physical therapy, and boom, you can start getting patients in because they need it right then. But something online where other people are already doing it, you got to be willing to try to figure out where can you get the word out? How can you spread what you're doing? Because I've done a lot of different things as far as advertising, marketing, and some have been effective and many others, not so much. So it's kind of been a mixed bag with all of that. And so being willing to adapt and learn, I think is one of the biggest tips I could give.
Yeah, I love that. That's again, a very entrepreneurial theme, right? It's not just physical therapy. It's not just online businesses. It's not just brick and mortar. It's literally, as an entrepreneur, you are constantly having to accept change and roll with it and just adapt, and if you don't, you're going to give up. You're going to fall flat. You're going to become one of the statistics of the 95% that never make it or whatever, Right. I actually read an interesting article the other day that said something to the effect of 95% of businesses, first-time businesses fail or whatever. But what they don't talk about a lot is the follow-up in that. And of those 95% that fail, there's X amount of people that start a second business or a third business or a fourth business. And those multiple other businesses, the percentage of success is higher and higher and higher as they go. So it's trial and error, it's very much, hey, tried this out, didn't work. I learned, I adapted, I won't do that again. Or, oh man, that really worked. Let's try to lean into that, see what works this time, So I think, like you said, it's a very entrepreneurial mindset. And I think too, it's changing with the times. And now, fortunately and unfortunately, with social media and whatnot, things are changing so rapidly that what works today may not work in a week from now or 2 weeks from now or 6 months from now. It's very, very fluid, and we've got to just be able to roll with it, And at the end of the day, you've got to get your word out there. You've got to spread the word a bunch of different ways. You should have 7 to 8 different, streams of getting the message out there. And, starting off doing some things for free is not the end of the world either. And then, just getting some testimonials from people saying, hey, I tried this, it worked. This guy knows his stuff. Get on there and give it a try. Doing work for free is not always the worst thing. It's not the end of the world. Now, you can't do it forever, or you're never going to be able to put a roof over your head. But when you're just getting started early on, it's definitely not the end of the world.
Yeah, there may be a little bit of component to that, and especially all the background work that isn't part of the actual presentation of your material. In this case, writing material. Taking care of all the little things with your website, the things that go down, that go wrong, all those little things, you work for free for all that stuff. The only part you actually get paid for is when you teach a class. And all that other behind the scenes stuff is a lot and multifactorial, definitely.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate at this point. I'm able to outsource most of that because I just, A, don't have the time to learn it, B, don't want to learn it. I only have so much room up here. I don't have, I don't have much more free space. So I leave it to the experts, But I think it's an important point that you kind of brought up too. If we bring it all full circle back to the beginning when you were saying you were looking up, chiro videos and stuff like that. We're not taught any of this business and entrepreneurial stuff in PT school. We're just not. And it's because we don't have time. We don't have room. It's not on the NPTE. Like very minimal business and admin stuff is on the NPTE. We'll go over maybe some billing and codes and stuff. But hey, man, if it's not on the board exam, we don't have time to teach it. So we just brush past and go, whereas chiros they're given some marketing courses. They're set up to succeed as soon as they graduate, if they want to open their own place, because that's a model they've been doing for many years. So we got to take it upon ourselves to, like you said, gain that clarity, seek out more education and research, and figure out ways to make our own businesses work.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin, thank you so much, man, for coming on and just kind of educating our audience on all things online courses and live courses and CEUs and certs and whatnot. Where can people find you if they want to reach out and just kind of learn more about the Institute, or if they just want to see what you're up to and follow what you're doing these days?
I am available on pretty much all major social media platforms under my first and last name, Dustin Buck, or the Institute of Manual and Manipulative Therapy. So Facebook, LinkedIn. They can also go to my website. It's thrustjointmanipulation.com. Or you can reach out to me directly. That'd be more than acceptable. Text message, phone call, 303-918-6162. So it's the company phone number. So yeah, I'm available.
Awesome. We'll put all those links in the show notes so everybody can find you easily if they have follow-up. Dustin, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.